Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? What we're going to talk about today is the boiling point. There is a constant principle in civilization. And this principle is history is unerring, redundant, it's unforgiving. The principle offers insight from the past to the present and then to the future. Inspiration validates this principle, and as it discusses earthly life, what has been, it is what will be, and what has been done, it is what will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes 1:9. The principle smacks down the arrogance of anyone thinking that they have concocted a new approach. Especially, does this expose the arrogance of politicians who applaud themselves on new guidelines for controlling the public? Well, the implosion of a nation is tragic. Worldwide implosion of nations united by one ruling class is never before seen event currently unfolding. What happens on the separate national scene is horribly amplified on the worldwide stage. Such does not occur instantaneously. It is a consequence of a process in which little by little actions accumulate until there is no hope for correction. The end comes when the population has reached a point of exhaustion. Anger is then unleashed. Those identified as the troublers are finally held accountable and then punished. History chronicles this process in an unerring narrative that strips away the facade of political hypocrisy. At the beginning, the process is unnoticeable because the general population functions as normal. But in the final stages, the accumulated changes unite, and the destructive, degraded civics, religion, and family become rampant and shockingly documented. A juggernaut of instability replaces that order. But in the end, the apathy that permits the national reformatting silently surrenders to the chaos. This in turn fuels civic upheavals, allowing greater violence, urges, and sensitivities to fellow man, and consolidates the separating of the elite rulers from the subservient ruled. The utter insensitivity of the ruling elite is exposed as they are oblivious to all and are focused only on their imagined superiority. This elitism is often attributed to Marie Antoinette. Her reputation as a self-consumed, indulgent elite is forever etched in civilization's Hall of Fame. Her eventual fate, and that awaiting all such elites, is documented. The French revolutionaries thought even less of her than we do today, as she was guillotined in 1793. The unraveling of civilization's great nations is a common thread, weaving through historic narratives in the centuries are different. The languages and forms of government are different. But the storyboard is constant. The message is redundant. The pattern is unerring. The constant cycle continues continues because elites think that their way is new. But their way is only a nauseous regurgitation of historic failures. Mortal arrogance thinks that the past does not apply. They choose to be ignorant of the past truths. Is there anything which one might say, see, this is new, it has already existed for ages before us. This is no remembrance of the earlier things. Ecclesiastes 1:10 through 11. History's revisionists and arrogant politicians refuse this principle, not because it's invalid, but because it disagrees with their arrogance. They believe that they know better and they can change the unchangeable. However, a factor bringing in eventual ruin to their utopian delusions is how the ruled eventually recognize reality. Perhaps their historic response is best illustrated by a comic character. Popeye, he struggled with his perennial opponents, Brutus or Bluto and Sea Hag, right? And when the opposition was too much, he stated, "That's all I can stands. I can't stands no more." And he reached for his spinach. The boiling point has been reached. So, do you know what the Gadsden flag's unforgiving message was? All right. Well, the history of this flag is encouraging. Don't tread on me, right? You see those flags everywhere. Don't tread on me. With a rattlesnake poised to attack and communicates the resolve of personal independence. It's not an aggressive posture, but a defensive one. It warns anyone who would tread on the liberties of free people to beware, because freedom is going to be defended. Those who have not tasted freedom remain peaceful, but their patience, it's not endless. No, it was this message hoisted by the first American Navy and the Marines. Hoorah! Now, an interesting trivia regarding this flag focuses on Benjamin Franklin. Franklin, he commented on the rattlesnake's symbol of the strength of American freedom and independence in an essay that was published by the Pennsylvania Journal in December 27th of 1775. The iconic Revolutionary War flag is a historic expression of American patriotism. Today, it's an expression of personal freedom and individualism. Now, Franklin correctly observed the rattlesnake never backed down when provoked and captures the temper and conduct of America. The defiant phrase, "Don't tread on me," means to step, walk, trample, so as to press, crush, or injure something. Or someone, really, could be as well. And so with its tongue flicked and fangs out and body coiled in defense, the rattlesnake warns, "If you dare put your foot down on me, I will strike." Now, let the ruling elite politicians and the entrenched governing bureaucrats listen carefully. Do you hear the spirit of the American citizen? As for the Nuremberg trial's unforgiving message as well. Here is a message that has been lost in the educational processes and ignored by the ruling elite. What makes this inquest significant is that the prisoners represent sinister influences that will lurk in the world long after their bodies have been returned to dust. We will show them to be living symbols of racial hatreds, terrorism, and violence, and of the arrogance and cruelty of power. It does not expect that your excuse me, your jurisdictional action will put the forces of international law on the side of peace so that men and women of goodwill in all countries may live underneath that law. Does this ruling elite politicians hear Justice Jackson? These represent sinister influences that will lurk in the world long after their bodies have been returned to dust. It is possible that the historical record will record the current rulers as living symbols of racial hatreds, or of terrorism, or of violence, and the arrogance of the cruelty of power. Will this be their dark legacy? This is the consequence of a self-consuming arrogance. Take the French Revolution, their unforgiving message. The catalyst of the French Revolution are difficult to specify, but of a compelling argument could be made that the combination of these factors helped to ignite the public. A constant state of war had been experienced for 40 years. This forever war environment took a toll on the French treasury and population. The strict class system placed the clergy and nobility far above the average citizens. Titles of nobility assumed that they were above the law and exempted from taxes. And the higher ranking classes, they refused to forfeit their privileges in the interest of saving the country. And the frustration of the French reached its boiling point. A good argument can be made that the French Revolution was a battle to achieve equality and remove oppression. And yet the boiling point was reached. In history's redundant chronicles, the pattern is constant. The rulers became delusionary, thinking that the rule of law applies to the population but not to them. And so the guidelines, the decrees, the mandates by pen and by phone, the executive orders that violate the rule of law, and the many other actions are recorded that violate personal freedom and strangles the independence until the boiling point is reached. This idiom should remind the ruling elite that eventually the ruled will shout, "Enough is enough." How many times have we said it? Let's continue to say it. Enough is enough. The limit is reached. Patience is exhausted. Trust is erased. The situation has become critical, calamitous, and uncontrollable. Such describes the Boston Massacre, Bunker Hill, the Boston Tea Party, the storming of the Bastille, a myriad of other historical events that are still parallel today. Such heinous actions are a lasting legacy of the failed politicians, the compromised judicial courts, and the inept executive leaders of our nations. There is a historical precedent when the people say enough is enough with these points in mind. Let the executive, the judicial, and the legislative branches of the United States of America decide what their historical response will be, and be assured that their decisions leave a legacy and that their judgment comes on those decisions. One final observation. When the boiling point is reached, God will come with a vengeance. The retribution of God will come. He who reduces rulers to nothing, who makes the judges of the earth meaningless. Isaiah 35:4, 40, 23. We've reached the boiling point. All right, guys, I'm out of here. I'll see you in the next one, okay? You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping, and as always, fear less. Ciao.